Ladies and gentlemen, people of the internet, in this video I'm going to show you how to cut and sew this very beautiful gown. So this gown is a two-tiered gathers gown. It is a bustier gown. It has two tiers of gathered flare. So in this video I'm going to show you how to cut and sew it. Oh yeah, now let's get into it. So I'm starting with the top part of this gown. So that's my bust point, my nipple point, my under bust point, and my half blouse. Okay, so now to how I got this measurement is I extended my tape by 6 inches, and I took my bust point measurement at 8.5 inches, my nipple point measurement at 10 inches, my under bust point measurement at 14 inches, and my half blouse at 18 inches. So because I'm cutting directly on the fabric, instead of marking my nipple point at 9.5 inches, I added half an inch, 10 inches, okay, to make it 10 inches. Same thing for my under bust point. Instead of marking at 13.5 inches, I added half an inch to make it 14 inches. So from the middle, I marked my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 plus half an inch. So my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 is 4 inches plus half an inch, that's 4.5 inches. So I marked 4.5 inches and I connected my markings together. The next thing I went ahead to do was to mark 1 inch on both sides at my half blouse, okay? And I also marked 1 inch on both sides at my under bust point. Okay, are you following? So after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect my under bust point to my half blouse with a straight line. So after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to use my ruler to connect my under bust point to my nipple point. Okay, you can see I'm trying to draw like a triangular ruler. I'm trying to draw a triangle shaped line. I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, so I connected my nipple point to my under bust point. So now for my chest line, remember I marked 4.5 inches at my nipple point, my under bust point, and my half blouse. So at my chest line, I'm going, instead of marking 4.5 inches, I marked 5.5 inches. After marking 5.5 inches, I connected it to my nipple point. I drew a slanted line, connected it to my nipple point. The next thing I went ahead to do was to mark half an inch on both sides of that line. So after marking half an inch on both sides, I went ahead to connect it to my nipple point. Okay, so after connecting it to my nipple point, this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. The next thing I went ahead to do is from that line, I marked 1 inch. Is it backwards? Yeah, I marked 1 inch backwards. After marking 1 inch backwards, the next thing I went ahead to do is at my bust point line, I divided circumference of my bust divided by 4, and mine is 9.5 inches. So I marked 9.5 inches. At my under bust point, I marked circumference of my under bust point divided by 4. Mine is 8. At my half blouse, I marked circumference of my waist divided by 4. Mine is also 8. Okay, so after marking out my measurement, the distance between those points, I added it back to my measurement so that everything is accurate, because you guys know that this bustier that we drew, we're going to cut out that part. So I had to add it back so that everything will be accurate. So after doing that, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect all my markings together. Okay, so after connecting all my markings together, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect my chest line to my bust point, okay, to my bust, to circumference of my bust, you get. So after connecting my chest line to my bust measurement, this is what we have here. The next thing I went ahead to do was to add 2.5 inches for my sewing allowance. So after adding 2.5 inches to my bust point, nipple point, under bust point, and half blouse, I just went ahead to connect everything together. So mind you, this lining is on a fold, and I marked out my measurement on the lining. So I just grabbed the main piece, secured with my office pin, and I cut the lining and the main piece together. So this is a sewing hack that makes cutting very easy for you, especially for someone like me who is doing the tutorial for my audience. You guys need to see it clearly. So I cut on my lining, and it's way easier and faster. Okay, so now this is what the front part of this gown looks like. So now it is time to cut the back part. Just like the front part, this lining is on a fold, and the first thing I went ahead to do was at the hem I marked 0.7 inches. Okay, so now after marking 0.7 inches, the next thing I went ahead to do was to slant it in. Okay, see, just look at what I'm doing at this point. I slanted it in. Okay, so now after slanting it in, the next thing I went ahead to do was to now mark 1 inch for my zip allowance. Okay, so I just went ahead to mark 1 inch on this slanted line for my zip allowance. Okay, so now after marking 1 inch for my zip allowance, the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark my underbust point and my half blouse, because the line on top at the back is going to be my bust point line. Okay, so the top is my bust point line, then we have my under bust point and my half blouse. So you can see that at the back I extended my tape by 8.5 inches, unlike the front I extended it by 6 inches. Okay, so now that's my under bust point at 14 inches and my half blouse at 18 inches. Okay, so now this is the measurement we are working with. I just went ahead to extend that half blouse line towards my zip allowance so that everything I'm doing here will be very accurate. Okay, so now after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do, ladies and gentlemen, was to mark my nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 plus half an inch. So that will give me 4.5. So I marked 4.5. Now because this is already slanted, I made sure I kept my ruler straight. Okay, so after keeping my ruler straight, I drew a straight line. Okay, so after drawing a straight line on both sides of the half blouse, I marked half an inch on both sides. Okay, half an inch on both sides, and at the top I marked half a cm on both sides. So at the half blouse, half an inch on both sides. At the top, I marked half a cm on both sides. So after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect the top to my half blouse. Okay, so after connecting the top to my half blouse, this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. So now the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark circumference of my bust divided by 4. Mine is 9.5 inches. So after marking 9.5 inches, the distance between those 2 points, I added it back. At my under bust point, I marked circumference of my under bust divided by 4. Mine is 8 inches. Okay, the distance between those 2 points, I added it back. At my half blouse, I marked circumference of my waist divided by 4. Mine is 8 inches. And I added it. And I marked it. After marking it, I added the distance between those 2 points back. Okay, so now after doing all this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect all my markings together. Mind you, use your own measurements where I'm using my own. Don't go and say, Ada use 8 inches for her waist. You're not going to use 8 inches for your waist. Is your waist 32? Okay, so now after connecting my measurement together, the next thing I went ahead to do was to add 2.5 inches for my sewing allowance. If you are hearing baby talk, yes, I'm backing my baby and doing this voiceover. Okay, so now the next thing I went ahead to do was to connect all my seam allowance together. Okay, so now after connecting all my seam allowance together, this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. Now the next thing you must do with immediate alacrity is to tag all your pieces, center back, side back, mark the direction of where each piece is going to face, because by the time you're done cutting, everything will start looking like each other. Okay, so now the next time I went ahead was to grab my main piece. I placed the lining piece on it and I'm just going to cut. Mind you, I've already interfaced the main piece so that it's going to be easy for me to work with. Okay, so now the reason why I didn't even interface the lining is because I wanted you guys to see it clearly. If I wasn't filming a tutorial, I'll just interface the lining and the main piece and I'll go ahead and mark and cut. Okay, so this is what we have here for the back part. Okay, so you know this gown has 2 tiers of gathered thread. So the first tier is 3 yards and the length is 17 inches, while the second tier is 5 yards and the length is 27 inches. Okay, so you can, of course, this fabric is folded so it can contain my cutting table. So now for the front part of this outfit, I've gone ahead to put more layers of forcible interface to strengthen the bustier. This is what the front pieces look like, and I'm just going to place it on each other like this and join. And I did same thing for the lining. So I just worked with paper stay for this bustier. I used 3 layers of that place that looks very thick. Okay, so now I took it over to my sewing machine and I joined the both parts of the bustier together for the main piece, and I also did the same thing for the lining. Ladies and gentlemen, when you are sewing your bustier, you go calm down. you go calm down. So now after So in joining my bustier together, this is what we have here for the main piece and for the lining piece. You can see everything is already looking beautiful. So for the strap, this is 1 inch. I cut 1 inch. The width of this strap is 1 inch, and I see the way I'm folding it. That's how you're going to fold yours. And the length is 15.5 inches. And you'll be wondering, Ada, how did you get 15.5 inches? This is how I got it. Remember, for the front part, we extended our tape by 6 inches before we start marking. That's so you keep 6 inches apart. And for the back, we extended our tape by 8 inches, okay, before we marked our under bust point and our half blouse. So 6 plus 8.5 inches, that will give me 14.5 inches, plus 1 inch joining allowance, that is 15.5 inches. So that's how I got the length of this strap. If you people are hearing jiggy jiggy, my baby is awake and I'm struggling for my life to do this voiceover. So you see the way I folded my strap. That is how you are going to fold yours. It will take time. This video is sped up, so don't think it's very fast. So I made 2 straps, okay. So after making the strap, this is how I placed it. This is how I inserted it into my bustier. You see that place, that joining point for the bustier, I just attached the strap to that point, held it with my office pin. The first thing I went ahead to do was to first of all tack the strap to the main piece of the bustier so it doesn't move when I'm attaching my lining, okay. So now after doing this, the next thing I went ahead to do was to secure the lining pins to the main piece, front side facing each other, and I just went ahead to trace the outline of where I'm going to sew. I like to do this when I need a definite shape. I don't want guesswork, okay. So I took it over to my sewing machine and I just joined my lining piece to the main piece. Now the reason why I told you I attached the strap first is because I don't want it to be moving around, okay. So now I flipped the lining over and I just went ahead to top stitch. Very, 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 very important, okay. So after top stitching, I gave it a good press and I also top stitch the sides and the hem, okay. So this is what we have here after top stitching and giving it a good press. This is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. So this is what the front part of this gown looks like. Very simple, very straightforward. Let's go to the back part. So now this is what the back part looks like. So I just grabbed the center back, placed it on the side back, and I'm going to join it. And I did same thing for the other side. And these are my lining pieces. You can see I kept my markings because I don't want wahala. I don't want to be wondering which one is top, which one is bottom, okay. So I took it over to my sewing machine and I just attached the pieces of, I joined the pieces of the back part together, side back to center back, side back to center back. I joined all the pieces together for the main piece and for the lining piece. And this is what we have here, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, so this is what we have here for the back piece. So this is what it looks like, okay. And so now we want to attach the strap to the back piece as well, okay. So the next thing I went ahead to do was to hold the strap down to the back piece with my office pin, okay, just like I did for the front part. And I also went ahead to top stitch it to hold everything in place. You're just going to tack it with your sewing machine to the back piece. See how I did it too? That's how you do yours. Make sure the strap is straight, it's not bending when you do this, okay. Now watch this part, is very important. See the way I grabbed the front part and see the way I flipped it over the back part, and I grabbed my lining piece for the back part and I placed it on the back part as well, front side facing each other, and I just went ahead to join the lining piece of the back part together. So after joining both pieces of the back part together, I went ahead to top stitch. If everything I'm saying is confusing you, just look at what I'm doing. So after top stitching, this is what we have here. I top stitched the top and I also went ahead to top stitch the sides, the both sides, and the hem, just like I did with my but just like I did for the front part, okay. So now the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark out my zip allowance at the back, which is 1 inch, and I just went ahead to join it at the zip allowance. So after joining it at the zip allowance and giving a good press, I went ahead to mark out my measurement. After marking out my measurement, I placed the back part on the front part, secured with my office pin, made sure everything was well aligned, and I just went ahead to attach the back part to the front part, okay. You want to take your time. This video is sped up. This is not the speed at which I joined the pieces together. Okay, so now, ladies and gentlemen, we are done with the top part of this gown. Okay, so that was the back, and this is the front. Like I told you, this first layer of gathered flared is, the length is 17 inches and the width is 3 yards. Okay, the width is 3 yards, and for the second layer it is 5 yards and the length is 27 inches. So with this, my gathers foot presser, this is the one for the industrial machine. It almost fell off my hand. This is the one for the industrial machine. I went ahead to use that foot presser to gather the layers, the 2 layers of the flared. Ladies and gentlemen, sewing is hard already, so get sewing tools that will make it easier for you. Okay, this one, I gathered this fabric, the 2 layers, in less than 15 minutes. That's to tell you how fast and efficient. And if it's not tight enough, or if it's not too gathered, you can reduce your speed. If you reduce your speed, the gathers will be tighter, but if your speed is fast, the gathers will be looser. Okay, so if there's any word like that. So now I went ahead to open up the zip allowance of this gown, and you can say, oh, Ada, you're just ripping it off. That's because I use very loose stitches to join the zip allowance. So okay, so I opened up the zip allowance of the blouse part. If I say gown, forgive me, I'm trying to do this voiceover because my baby will soon come and find me where I'm hiding. The next thing I went ahead to do was to secure this first tier of gathers to my top part. So after securing it with several office pins, I took it over to my sewing machine and I joined them together. Okay, you guys, this voiceover. School, they are on holiday, and one of the reasons why I have not been posting is because filming with my baby at home is very difficult. So it took me a couple of days to even film this tutorial, and doing a voiceover now is following me around the house. Right now I'm hiding. So now this is the second layer of the flared. Okay, this is the second layer of the flared, of the tier, gathers flared, you understand. So I've gone ahead to gather it, and the next thing I went ahead to do was to secure it with office pins to the first layer. This thing took me over 2 hours to secure properly. Okay, it took me about 2 hours to secure properly. I just wanted to make sure that everything was well aligned, and I took over to my sewing machine and I attached the second layer of the flared to the first layer of the flared. Okay, so make sure you take your time, make sure before I bite my tongue, make sure both layers are on the same level and one is not lower, and and it doesn't come out well. So make sure everything is well aligned. Make sure you weave as you go. So now the next thing I went ahead to do was to attach my zip to the zip allowance of this gown. Okay, so I attached my zip to the zip allowance of this gown. I was just showing you guys the zip. The next thing I went ahead to do was I took it over to my sewing machine and I just attached my zip. When it comes to attaching zip, do you know what they call moment of silence? I literally do that when I'm attaching my zip because I don't want to repeat it. I don't want to loosen it. I don't want to, so I take my time. So you guys, after attaching the zip, this is what the gown looks like. It's giving rich auntie vibes. It's giving rich girl with a lot of dollars in her account. So you guys, this is the easiest way, the simplest way, and the fastest way to cut and sew a bustier tiered gown. You can see the reason why we used 5 yards for the bottom, because it was going to give it this very full look. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe if you're watching for YouTube, make sure you follow me if you're watching from Facebook, make sure you share. If you want me to make something like this for you, that's my WhatsApp number. Hit me up. Bye.